Okay. Welcome. Oh, my table isn't close enough. My coffee isn't close enough. Welcome, everybody. I think we have some new people to the group today, and lots to go over today. And this is such a big topic, it's almost like, where do we start? But we started with where we started yesterday, and we'll go over that in a minute. So for those that don't know me, my name is Joan Ranquet, and I run Uncaffeine, Horses, and Cuss Words. That's the cup that we are drinking out of today. And I like to think that cups of coffee are like oracle cards. And so today, I'm going to try not to cuss. Anyway, my name is Joan Ranquet. I'm an animal communicator. I'm an author. I'm a healer. I'm a speaker. I'm a TEDx speaker, and I'm the founder of Communication with All Life University. And we're in our 10th year, and my mission has always been to empower others to deeply connect with all life so that together we can give a voice to those who can't speak for themselves and ultimately heal the planet. And this year, in my 10th year with the school, I thought I'd put a number on it, that I'm here to help 1 million animals and their people. And in doing that, since I can't do that alone, I'm empowering a whole lot of other people. And these classes are so important because you're going to not only have some healing and peace yourself, but you're going to have an opportunity to maybe even help your friends and family in really challenging situations. So I really appreciate you showing up. I know it's not easy. This isn't a fun topic, but you'll see that it will be fun eventually. Fun enough. You know what? I don't have my Kleenex.
I'll go get it.
Oh my God, because
it.
These classes go this way. And also, for those that have been with me before, you'll see we did some set decorating here. I am no longer as close to the bookshelf in case we have an earthquake, so I think that Claudia is very, very thoughtful that way. And also, later today, we will have the book club for Communication with All Life. And if you have time and can join us, we would love that. So I'm just going to put that right there as a little reminder. Anyway, I'm really glad you're here. And I have to say that I was so moved. You know what, I think the Kleenex, yeah, there's one right. Of course it fell off the table. Thank you. I've been so moved that I've needed the Kleenex to get through some of the love letters yesterday.
You're a lot braver than I am.
Yeah, I went through as many as I could last night and this morning. And so I want to just kind of recap what we did yesterday. Yesterday we did, we really talked about, we kind of broke open the whole thing about what grief looks like and what it is when we've lost someone, how painful that is, but that how important it is to really move through all of our feelings about it, because when we resist something, we're just making it bigger, and it's not good for us physically, and it's also not good for us emotionally. And our animals wouldn't want us to be trapped in those kind of feelings, right? Like, they've always been part of the joy of our lives, and that should be the continuum, even if we have dips in feelings. And I like to think of grief as that it's like ocean waves. They come and go. And so to feel into, if you hear a sound of a dog walking, it's actually a dog walking. It's not a ghost dog.
Oh,
Can you see Barnaby in the shot?
No.
Okay, so it sounds like I've got ghost dogs walking through my house, which I do, but they're usually at night. Anyway, we talked a lot about grief. We talked a lot about how important it is to honor our grief. And what I was saying was that the ocean waves, that grief comes and goes, and it doesn't have to stay there. So we don't have to be terrified that we're just going to be locked into grief. Although people had some pretty big crying yesterday, but a lot of release, and that's part of doing this work, right? And it frees up like a place in our soul and our heart to maybe bring in another animal or to help someone else. So that's the main thing we talked about, and then we did a meditation on remembering the joyful things and getting back to what our animal was or is, because I mean, even I'll just tell this little story. I have a whole school for those that are new to me, giant school, keeps me busy every day. But on Wednesdays I have a class called Animal Communication Level 1, the Fundamentals, and tomorrow's the last day. So it's been a 12-week course, and it's kind of an intro into the big program, or some people are taking it because they're massage therapists or dog trainers or something else. Anyway, so I had a group, I have two groups, I have an 11 a.m. and a 5 p.m. class. Both groups, a few weeks ago, both groups did an amazing job of communicating with my horse, Gabrielle. Well, what happened was, and this is where we just, remembering who they were, whether they're dead or alive, is just, it's huge, because we get caught in the last memories of somebody's death and we don't remember all the joy. Well, it also happens for elderly, because Gabrielle's 31. I mean, she's really an elderly horse, and she's fragile, and what I see is fragile. But what my class saw when they talked about the essence and the favorite things and all the things that we do in the class, they painted a picture of like who she really is, even in the slower walk. And I don't know if you've ever seen the picture of like the ballerina, it's a picture of a little old lady walking, but her shadow is that of a really elegant ballerina. Well, that's what I felt like I was looking at, this little old horse every day, but remembering, because of this class, who she was. Well, she had an accident that was terrifying. I thought she broke her leg or her neck. She didn't. But if it weren't for that animal communication session, like I was supposed to fly out the next day for the UK to teach, so this was in May, and I did fly out. But the reason I was able to was because of that communication session of remembering who she is, who she really is, and that she's quite capable of healing herself, and that she didn't want to be someone that would hold me back. So, these remembering who they are is so profound. And then the other thing we did yesterday was I gave everybody the homework of the love letter to their beloveds and that have passed. And I have to tell you, that was what made me need Kleenex. They're so beautiful. They are so beautiful, and they're so moving. And yesterday somebody talked a lot about how much, how they were crying really hard, almost inconsolably doing the meditation. And it's like, I said that there are different kinds of tears, and if we recognize what kind of crying we're doing. Like, I was crying because I was so moved, because people really put so much effort. I was moved that people love their animals so much. I was just moved that they notice every single thing about them and the stories and all of it, that, to me, it's just really, it's just profound. And so I know that we're doing an important thing here. So I just want to say thank you to the people that showed up and are being really present and giving this work their all. And do we have any comments? Anybody saying hello?
Okay, let's go back. Selena Brown says hi. Carrie Betts, Ruth Corey, Cindy Coleman, Robin Elias, Colette. I'm not going to even pronounce your last name. Woohoo! Another fabulous day in this amazing book club. The Masterclass. But Cindy Gans Turner, Irene Kuzinha says, what a day. And let me see. Cindy Anderson says, hi, I really need today's class. Thank you. There's a couple of people who actually just lost their animal companion. So hi to everybody. Jeanette Arnold from Calgary, Alberta. So Ruth Corey, one of my cats is at the vet right now with severe arthritis. She screams every time she moves. She had been doing so well with acupuncture and laser treatments until Sunday, so she's dealing with that. So sorry. Joey Smith just lost her Peanut last week.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Kat Capolino lost her dog on Friday. I'm gonna start
Yeah, Claudia.
crying.
I'm gonna have to give Claudia the Kleenex.
Always. Dawn Reese says, I've been crying all day from the love letters too. Thank you to everyone
Yeah.
for bravely sharing them. It's helping me to unlock my own grief. Melissa Olivet says it's so heartfelt and yet her heart still feels broken. Robin Aaliyah says it was cathartic and she feels more peaceful since yesterday.
Good. That's one of the intentions of doing this is that we release it, because what we talked about yesterday also, and this is so important, our grief compounds if we don't address it, right? It's like it's sitting in there because we have so many things, and if it's been a family member that's died and you're an adult, I mean, it's one thing to be a kid, like we don't have the handbook for this, and so those feelings get big. But the other thing that happens as an adult is often, like if it's a parent that dies, you've got a task list and you don't get to grieve, right? Because you're thinking about the, who's bringing, do we have enough chairs for everybody for the memorial? Or do we have enough, who's bringing what food? Suddenly you're like, oh, we need drinks. Should we get plastic cups? You know what I mean? Like your brain, and sometimes it's good for the brain, especially if it's been a shock, but we get in a to-do list. And so my intention for this whole week is that we really as collectively move through some big stuff, so that we are available. And like I said yesterday too, there's a piece of the grief that all of a sudden no longer is overwhelmingly sad. It is what it is. It just is what it is at a certain point. And then you can do something like, and I wanted to share this, because then we'll jump into the work. I've been going through photos, like I said, and I had, so today, ironically, is the anniversary of Pet One's death. Tomorrow is Anya, my other horse's birthday. But so I always feel like I'm so lucky that right at the death day, there's always like a great birthday. So, anyway, this, so here's my Pet One before she had Pony Boy. So beautiful.
Oh, she's gorgeous.
Yeah. And I just, I made a whole, we were talking yesterday also a great deal about memorials. What I did with this little book was I made a memorial of, of the whole experience of her being pregnant. I even had a baby shower for her, for a Pony Boy. Yes, I did. Oh, yes, I did. And some of my favorite photos are in this. So this memorial isn't on the wall like the other ones, but it's more of that. But when she died, I do have a bit of her hair. I mean, that's another way of memorializing. I don't do that so much anymore. And then, just have to show you how fabulous her baby shower was. It was pretty great. Everybody from Hollywood was there. Anyway, so yeah, hi Barnaby. Hi. So we had a lot of, and then here's Pony Boy's first hoof clipping. Yes, I do have that. So then she colicked, right? And she colicked the day he was born. So he was born on May 10th. He was a little Taurus. So I had an orphan colt. And she was in ICU after surgery for about 6 weeks. And I got her home. And here's the day that I got her home. But she was not interested in the baby. Wasn't going to happen. I had been bottle feeding at that point anyway. And then, So she was home for like 3 weeks, and then she colicked again, and was in the hospital for another week. So this is my kind of memorial to both of them, and it's falling apart. But Claudia told me just a few minutes ago that she could fix it, because she's that person. I am not. So anyway, that's a big memorial I have. And then also, I think this is funny that this showed up. This was Alexandria. This is in 1998. But the best part of this is what you can't see in this is that I was teaching an animal communication class, and I asked her, I'd already asked her to teach the class, right? And I was sitting over in one area, and I had about 15 people in my apartment, and I had already we'd done the picture exchange of my horse, Gabrielle. Obviously I didn't have my horse there. So they did the first animal was Gabrielle. And then when after the break, I asked Alexandria to come in and teach the advanced portion. She just hopped right up on that ladder like a pro. But anyway, so I have lots of ways that I memorialize my guys around here. And I think that like going through photos, I mean, I've got quite a project going here. But it's really good because, you know, it's going to be in a cloud if anything happens, you know, a fire, an earthquake, God forbid. But, you know, it just really thinking about how you can memorialize. And I know it seems silly to think about putting things in the cloud, like that shouldn't be in this class. But it's just a reminder that you don't want to lose these things. You know, you want to have it so that if something happens, you do, you know, have easy access to it. And that it's not a pile of photos like mine were. But anyway, one of the things that, so this has been really great. Do we have any comments about, yes?
Let me go back. Hold on. I'm going back. Okay. Sorry, everybody. There's a lot of comments. So I said this yesterday and I'll say it again. We're going to try and get through as many questions as we can, but we also want to get through the course. So if your question hasn't been answered or you have a comment to make, you could post it to the page and hashtag question, or you can email Joan at assist@joanranquet.com. Again, that's assist@joanranquet.com. So like I said, I'm going to try and get through the questions. So bear with me. Kathy Boyer.
Mm-hmm. Hi, Kathy.
I have the names of 13 cats I still need to grieve. Talk about stuffed feelings.
And Kathy's in the big program. And let's see. Kathy came to spring. Oh.
Yeah, she was here for the spring.
You'll be here for the fall for Animals in Transition, Death, Dying, and Beyond. But you know what? This is going to be great for you to work through some of this stuff. Maybe, you know, do a love letter per 13, you know, so that you're really open when you get here in October, because that's going to be so amazing.
Vicky Moontree, love that name, says, thank you for this class, Joan. Such a strange time for me. I signed up because I lost my beloved dogs in 2015 and 2018. Strangely, though, my partner left me at the weekend, and I'm stricken with the grief of that loss right now, which has overwhelmed everything. I think this class will be such a comfort because although he is a human animal and he didn't die, the pain is exactly the same.
You know what? That is such a great point. And thank you for being brave enough to share that. You know, when I talk about grief compounding, the other thing that grief is that is really hard to understand is grief that's compounded within us that leads to like disappointment is often, it can even be over a project. It can even be over a friendship. Like how many of us have lost girlfriends where it just got weird and we didn't, you know what I mean? Like that's another form of breakup. You know, a friend breakup is gnarly. So breakups, that contributes to the grief. Loss of a dream, loss of a project, loss of a job, loss, you know, all sorts of losses get piled into that giant, you know, place of guilt, of grief and guilt. Wow. And that then we don't, if we haven't worked through it, we don't have a way to release it, and then it becomes so overwhelming to deal with one grief, because like Kathy just said, she's got 13. So the idea that you have to do one more, or maybe it takes a breakup with a boyfriend or something to come along where you're just like, oi, the overwhelm, it breaks you open.
So I'm going through.
Claudia, I want you to tell that story you told me on the hike.
Okay, so on June 20th, my great aunt passed, and I was close to her daughter growing up, and she called me last night, and they're sisters and their dad now, and there's, as losing someone does, a lot of emotions come up, resentments, so now everything's passed, and now there's a lot of hard feelings around the death and around how she died and pain. And last night we were talking, and I remembered what we talked about yesterday about focusing on the person and the essence of the animal. And we started talking and remembering things about her sister, who she's fighting with now, and things about her mom. And by the end of the conversation, she said, "Oh my God, thank you for reminding me of who they were and who they are in essence." And that was very transformative for me too, because it also did it for me, because I was there when she died, and it was not an easy thing to watch. So it just was nice to go back and remember who they were.
Yeah, and it is. I think everybody's going to find in the next few weeks after this class that there are going to be places where some of these techniques or meditations or exercises that we're doing are really going to come into play. Any other comments?
There's a lot. So Selena Brown says, because of the class I participated in and part of the big program, I was able to help my best friend to hold space for her dog of 16 years cross the Rainbow Bridge last Tuesday.
Aww.
We celebrated all her years of life. We took out all sorts of photos and made her a cake to celebrate her new journey. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Really helped my friend tremendously. She said it really helped her feel at peace and embrace this transition with grace and love. Thank you, Joan, for teaching me these skills. That's beautiful, Selena.
That's so beautiful, Selena. And yeah.
Marcella Lowe says, my Amy, a black lab, passed away over 2 months ago, and I still have most of her stuff out and still feel the wind has been knocked out of me. Someone told me that she's always with me, so I envision her walking beside me, and that helps.
Claudia's going to need more than one piece of Kleenex.
Here's someone... Okay, so this is someone who you spoke with. Her name is Kerry Wolsky.
Mm-hmm.
She says, my third child, Coco, transitioned about 2 months ago due to coyote attack, and I found Joan and spoke with her before having her cremated to make sure it would not further traumatize her. I've been working so hard to process her loss and at the same time honor her with good grief. I'm so happy to join this group in class. Thank you.
Yeah, that was a big one. We're going to talk a little bit about, sudden things and yeah.
And then Christina Hope says, thank you so much for this, Joan. This is like better than therapy. I know about that from personal experience. Me too.
Me too.
Cindy Gantz Turner says she's grieving her husband's diagnosis of dementia. That was something else's diagnosis that you were going to say too.
Yeah, that's amazing that you're saying that too, because one thing that, it's like, in order to step forward with that next step, sometimes we have to grieve who they were. Like a lot of times we look at, like, I remember, we'll talk more about this I think tomorrow, but we'll talk about it today, because like with Olivia, when she couldn't run the way that she had once run, like to watch her, she ended up with this kind of Tim Conway shuffle. I don't know if anybody knows what that is, but when he did that old man move. Anyway, but there were stages of it, right? Like there was at 8, it kind of slowed down, and then at 10 it slowed down again, and then at 12 it really slowed down. So the last 2.5 years were nothing like what she was, and she was so determined to be somebody that going to take care of things no matter what, right? Like I said, she could have lived to just, I've said it in some class, that she would have been happy just being a head and just barking orders once everything else fell apart in her body, and I'm not kidding. But I did have to grieve at one point that was no longer who she was, but then really embraced who she is. And I know that's hard to do with the Alzheimer's, but Cindy, but I think there is there's something in there that, like, grieving that now so that you have the strength to make the decisions and do the things you have to do as you get further down into it. And knowing, this is the thing that I wish I would have known in the 80s, like, where is the point of grief where it turns into low-grade depression? And that's where, when we really honor the ebb and flow of grief, and we don't stay in it, and we grab the joy when we can, then we have less of a chance of going into kind of a low-grade depression. And I'll give you an example. When my sister was dying, I would go, if I went to the movies, I would laugh, and then I would be brought right back to, oh my God, how can I have fun? My sister's dying. And so I was just really aware of and I was really into, like, a lot of Zen and meditation back then, so I was really cognizant of the moment by moment by moment. And I had probably a year where I had so much guilt and almost loyalty to her. I felt if I had joy, I was being disloyal to my feelings about her, even though she was almost as much fun as me, and she might have been more fun than me, and she would only want for me to be having fun, right? So that's just a disservice we do to ourselves if we don't understand that ebb and flow. So the woman who said that her dog is walking beside her right now, that's what she imagines. It's like, even though I think the dog's name was Amy, I think that, like, Amy would want, and especially if it's a lab, Amy would want you to have some fun. And, you know what I mean? Like, that we get so caught up in the grief, and I call it loyalty to our feelings about the person, as if they would want us trapped in those feelings, and they just wouldn't. Okay, so
it's the whole compounding of grief is coming up for a lot of people. Here it is. Roseanne Greco says, depression has set in since my mom's death and compounded when I lost my Bella. Trying to dig my way out, and there's someone that was talking about their mother-in-law. I'll find it. Okay. But because we're getting just a lot of comments. So.
Yeah, and I can't wait. I'll go through these later too.
Yeah.
So if you don't get dropped in on, I'll go through it before the book club, and I'll also go through it tonight. So people that are watching it later also.
Yeah, Robin Aaliyah says, had depression over christening my dog because I didn't do the grief right. Did not understand. Yeah, and that's so, I think it's just so common, because grief can be, it just doesn't have to be like this solid thing. It becomes, and it doesn't go away. It just lessens. And I have a dog over there that's being very playful. Delilah. She was even playing with a toy. And the funniest part was when the gal said that about her dog Amy, that she has all her stuff out. What I almost said is, I have a house full of Olivia and Isabella's toys that these two couldn't give a crap about, right? But all of a sudden, Delilah started playing with one of the toys. As if Olivia came in and said, play with the toy on cue, and now. Okay, so one thing I want to really do this next little bit, because this is an important thing for those that have animals that are dying, and also, there might be some memorializing also in this. And so first and foremost, I want to talk just about death itself, right? Like,
one thing we kind of touched on yesterday is that I really believe that nobody can die a moment before or a moment after they're supposed to. And some die quickly, like the beautiful little dog that was taken by the coyote. I mean, the shock and horror of it all would have to be, just so much to process. Because your world is going one way one day, and now it's going this way, and I know that. And when it is an accident or, a coyote or, someone else, I don't know if Rebecca's on here, her dog was taken by a cougar, or it could be a car. Somebody in here talked about their niece or somebody's dog was hit by a car, like they went out of their way to hit the car. I mean, when those sorts of things happen, it's just the reverberation of shock. I think just, you almost never look at the world the same again, on the one hand. And on the other hand, I don't know, I think it's a real individual lesson for, not a lesson, but just an experience, an individual experience that is going to mean something. And when I say that, I want to be really careful, because I don't think that, I know there's a lot of animal communicators out there that's like, our animals are here to teach us. It's like, yeah, they might be. They might also be our friends. They might be 1,000,000 things, and one of the blessings may be that you get to learn something, but I think they're far more than just teachers for us. But that said, I know that, again, I'll use this as an example. When my sister died of cancer, I didn't know that, I had one perspective. Within a year, I was suddenly living in California, where I had 18 friends that had AIDS. And, more than 18, 26. I mean, I have a degree in theater, so you can imagine that in the 80s, I was with the dance majors and theater majors. I knew a lot of gay men. I also worked in restaurants, you know what I mean? Like, I was in a situation where I just had these delightful, bright, shining souls all around me. And 3 of them are still alive, but 18 of them died. So when I think about my sister's death, was preparing me for what I was going, like, helping on almost a triage level with people, and sitting in the room with several of them in their last stages. And then watching that, I didn't know that my own sister would end up with a pretty debilitating disease. And she's still alive. But so it's like one thing after another. What it looks like this minute may be something else 5 years from now. And so I never look at like, oh, the lesson is this. To me, it's a continuum of learning and sharing and being able to transform it for myself, transmute the pain, be able to then bring some light to the really dark situation. So I don't know for each of you what light can come from the really sharp experiences where it's just like happens like that. I know I thought that Gabrielle, just a few weeks ago when she fell, I thought I was going to have to call the vet to put her down because I didn't know if she had broken something. So, I mean, I was hyper aware in that moment that I was in that moment. And then fortunately I wasn't. But she was aware also, which was what was so incredible. But anyway, then there are some that that have prolonged dying. And that's where we have the opportunity to really be like a midwife. I think of it as a midwife because and that goes back to Preciousville, because it's like if we really treat these lives, our life with these others, as so important and precious and sacred, and be in gratitude, even if we've just lost the soulmate and we're left with some that aren't our soulmates, we have to, if we can really honor these moments. If we think of, I think that death or the dying process is a lot like the labor into the next life. And so when we think in terms of right now, if you're dealing with someone who's dying, you're that midwife into their next life. And what is that going to look like? And even for Cindy, thinking about the Alzheimer's, like how, if you took that moment to grieve for yourself about your husband, who your husband was, but you set yourself up to be like the most amazing midwife for his next experience. I mean, there's got to be some brownie points for that, right? But I mean, it just might even help you move, transform the whole experience a little bit for yourself, so that it isn't all just sad. And so when we get to be that midwife, it becomes a really incredible opportunity for, again, finding the joy, finding the moments, finding the pockets of joy. How can we make this a really beautiful experience, even though it's sad for us? It's like finding these secret moments where we have, not secret, but some really kind of moments of kind of what I call the pre-grieving, of really grieving what the animal was and who you see the animal to be now once there's this diagnosis. And then from there, it's really, taking that and being really strong and present then in the moments that the animal is still here. And so it brings me to one of the most favorite things that I've ever done, which was create a bucket list. And when I created the bucket list, you can't believe how this went. So, and part of it is like Selena brought up that she helped somebody with a party. Like, I love a good party for animals, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But even, like if you know that you're doing it sooner than not, like maybe even bringing a bunch of people over and pulling all the photos out and really remembering, again, going back to that word remember. And that's why I actually call my fall intensive the Remember Intensive, because it's animal communication, it's animals in transition, death, dying, and beyond. So it's taking a deeper dive with a lot of this material. And then it's energy healing. And I believe that animal communication and energy healing are inherent in our nature. So that's already just remembering who we are, but then remembering who they are through the death and dying process of that class. But anyway, so helping people with, like a party, or if you have somebody that's, you have to make that decision soon, I think at the very least doing a party, depending on how mobile the animal is, doing a party is like one of the most fun things you could do. Then the next thing is an actual bucket list, like sitting down and thinking about all the things that they would love to do. And I would encourage you guys to think about doing this for animals that are not, that they're kind of older but not old. Just because you don't know. And it, Anyway, I'll tell the story about my bucket list with Olivia. So, Olivia.
I'm already laughing because I know.
Oh my God. Okay, so first it goes like this. First of all, I thought about all the things that she loved to do, right? And I was looking at the fact that I kind of wanted to move to California. I was living in Seattle. She lived with me. She was born in Denver. I lived in Denver. We lived there for 2 years together. Then we moved to Florida. And in Florida, she went with me a lot. If I was out in barns talking to animals, I would call in advance and say, is it okay if I bring my dog? And, she was very well behaved. We did one of the things I need to scan in next is all of her obedience certificates. I mean, she and I did so much training together. Anyway, she lived with me in Seattle, and then she made it here to California. But we hiked in one of the things that when I was married, my ex-husband and I, we got her up. She did 3 14ers, and for people that hike, a 14er is a 14,000 foot mountain, and it's people love to talk about, I did 10 14ers. If you live in Colorado, it's everybody talks about their 14ers. So she and I and my ex-husband did 14ers 3 times, and she would just zip ahead of everybody. I mean, she was so, just so fit, so in shape, so fantastic. But she also loved, then when we were in Florida, she loved to be on the beach. So when I was living in Seattle there at the end, the last few months, I thought, what did we love to do? I'm going to make sure that if I'm not out traveling and teaching, and my second book was coming out at that time, let's try to do some of these things. Why don't we just try to do some of these things? So what ended up, and again, she was, limited. Her hips were going, she was half Border Collie, a quarter German Shepherd, a quarter Rottweiler. And unfortunately, she ended up with those German Shepherd hips. But anyway, so these are kind of lofty thoughts, right? Like, I'd like to do this, that, and the other thing. But the worst thing on the planet happens. So my book came out, Energy Healing for Animals came out November 15th or November 1st. I went to Florida, I did some things, came back, and on December 7th, my horse Raleigh dies. So this isn't even going in the order I'm thinking, right? Like, what? Like, he just has this really bad colic. The vet palpates him. He's got a huge tumor inside. He's 22. It just would have been torture to give him a surgery. So I let him go. And all of a sudden, it became really real. Like, I'm going to be losing a bunch of animals here because I have this older one. And I didn't know if Gabrielle would live through this, right? Like, so it became critical, like, bucket list now. So I made the list, and I got, on New Year's Day, I got Olivia out to the ocean, and outside of Seattle, the ocean. I took her to the snow. The snow was a big thing because we loved snow. And whenever it snowed in Seattle, she thought I had ordered it for her. So she looked at me every time I opened the door and there was snow outside, like, thank you, thank you, right? So I thought, I've got to get her to snow because I can't guarantee that it's going to snow in January. So I had, at that point, I still had my dead mother's car, right? I'd had this great SUV for years. And at some point, I ended up with my dead mother's car. My SUV had died, so I've got this little sedan thing. And, I just cram all the dogs into the back like a clown car. And anyway, and they'd all kind of crumple out. So at some point, I meet this friend to go to the place, to go up to the mountains to go for the snow. So we meet at a park and ride sort of thing. And she gets out of my car, and she gets into the back of my friend's SUV, and she looked at me, and there was cussing involved. It was like, I can't believe that we don't have an SUV. And there was, the F word. She said it to me. I didn't make that up. So anyway, I went the next day and I bought a car. I bought my dog a car. That was part of the bucket list. I bought her a car. And so, and then in the end, when she got really, suddenly we moved it to California, and I got down here, and in the end, so she had her own car, and we used it a lot. I took her everywhere again, like I used to with the other SUV. But then, and then in the end, we loved what we used to call Toy Parade. And so we would grab a toy and run around, and all the dogs did it. But she couldn't run anymore. So I got the dogs to do it, and then I created just a parade in general. And I'll be honest, and I have pictures to prove it. I can't believe I don't have these. I'll have them for tomorrow. I dressed my cats up in costumes. Henry was, of course, King Henry, and Buster Keaton made a fine-looking sailor, and Queen Latifah was in a pumpkin outfit. And they paraded around the dog. So that was the night before she was euthanized. So we made it very fun. And she literally sat in the corner, couldn't move, and barked at everybody, giving everybody direction as to what to do. So we made the most fun out of all of these hard things. But, you know, the most important things with the bucket list is I got her to all the things that she loved to do, even if we couldn't do them in the way that we used to do them. So I have a video of her just kind of walking through the snow and just being so happy and smelling, right? Like all the things she could still do, we got to do. And so one of the things that I really want for those that have animals that are older or you're coming close to those stages, and for the people that have just lost someone and you still have an animal in your home, like what is that bucket list? What do you think is going to bring joy to those animals, because they're grieving also? And you know, sometimes the grief in a household, you know, we slide into more grief because our animals are grieving. So what are some bucket list things for the animals? So we're having we'll have sheets in there, and then you know, we some of the things for you might be cooking, it might be sitting on the beach, it might be hiking, it might be sitting on a mountaintop. I remember one guy, this is in my book, Communication with All Life, this woman told me that her husband didn't believe in animal communication, and she kept canceling on me. And at some point, she finally gets me out to the hospital where she was going to have the dog euthanized. And the dog said she wanted to go home one more night and be with the family. And so when the woman brought the dog home, the husband looked at her like, okay, why is she home? And she said she wants to have dinner with us and have one more night with us. So the husband, who didn't believe in animal communication, got out a wagon and put the dog in the wagon, and they went on all the old fire roads that they used to hike on for years. And so it's just thinking on things like that where, you know, it could be a party, it could be a memorial before they die. But I remember my dog Isabella, who did die pretty suddenly. I found out, you know, she had that horrible spleen cancer thing. And they said I probably had 36 hours with her. Well, I only had 24. But I was planning a party where I was going to let her actually eat out of the garbage, right? I was going to just have all of her dinner in a big garbage can because she loved to knock over the trash and drove me insane with it. So it could be even something that makes you crazy that they did, that like, all right, you can have your final eat out of the garbage. So a bucket list can be really something that is, it should be something that lifts you, even if it's sad that you're not doing it in the way that you once did it. And again, I'm hoping that you guys will post like #bucketlist. Like Claudia, you have an older dog.
I was just thinking when we started this that I wanted to, because she's really healthy, but she's 15 and a half. So I was thinking I need to do her bucket list, and I know what it is. So
what is it?
Food. She loves food. She doesn't care about other dogs. She only wants to be with my husband and me and food. She doesn't like going anywhere. We take her to the dog park. She looks at me like,
get me out of here.
Yeah. So I'm thinking of her bucket list. And she loves blankets. So, yeah, her bucket list.
Yeah. Is anyone responding?
Yeah, there's a couple. So Tony Ann Ventrella says, missing the feeling of touch, petting, holding. I wish every day I could feel him, pet him, hug him in the touch. We haven't talked about the touch. How can you get over that? That's why I roll his blanket up and pet it. I sleep with it, hold it. It helps, but of course not the same.
I mean, I think with that, like, I feel like I I know the physical presence is so important, but I feel like in the next 2 days, we've got some more things coming up that I feel like are going to help you. All right, did you want to come up, Delilah? Come on, up. Good girl. I feel like, I feel like in the next 2 days there are going to be some ways that you're going to continue the connection. I don't think that you're ever going to stop missing. How can I help you here? All right, see ya. I don't think you're ever going to stop missing that. And it will just lessen. And I think that if there are things that you need to, look, I still have Raleigh, the horse that died. His blanket is what I have people sit on this healing TheraPlate that I have. Like, I will never let go of that blanket. I have things around that I still can touch to remind me. So I don't think we're going to let go of that, but I think that some of the other things hopefully will get stronger, like the good memories and the fun and the joy, and hopefully it will make space for you to release some of the pain.
I did something with my dog who passed. I took a piece of his blanket and I put it in a Ziploc bag so I could smell it.
Oh.
And I keep it sealed somewhere in my house.
That's really smart.
So I can, like, when I miss, I don't do it as much anymore, but I used to go in and smell it to smell him, and he did not smell good, but I loved his smell. So Bonnie Erickson says, I have a 17-year-old little darling who's going through good days and bad days. I know how you feel. Doing something special for her every day, my Maggie.
Oh, that's awesome.
And Pat DeWalt says, I think my cats who have transitioned have helped me with that loss of the physical proximity issue. They have always sent another cat my way that I'm sure they had a paw in selecting.
I love that. And one of the things that I love about that is, love that Delilah just reorganized the chair. I am speaking at an event coming up for animal body workers, and it's in September, and one of the things that I'm reminding them is just how big their mission has to be, and that we have a big mission of helping animals, and I feel like the euthanasia rate in shelters is so staggering. And so for me, like, I'm at capacity. I work a lot. I travel. Maybe that's going to slow down, maybe not. But I'm at capacity for me right now. Right now. It could change. But I want to make room in my heart for someone new when someone leaves. And I think that the world needs us to find that open-hearted space. So that's a really important reason to keep moving through, because there's somebody out there that your dog or cat or horse could send you that really needs your help.
I've had that happen with every one of my animals. Somehow, some way, another animal shows up in their place.
Mine shows up before the other one goes. So, like, Delilah had 4 years with Olivia. Abby had a few months, had 5 months, 6 months with Isabella. So I'm lucky that way. That, and I know also I love having 3 dogs. Don't get me wrong. I only have 2 right now, but I can't. 3 is so fun. And there's a time when we'll have another, but it's just not today.
So Colette Miller, okay, I'm going back as far as I can right now. She says, I bought Lily a stroller and her and I go on adventures to see new things at the park and neighborhood. She loves it. Her eyes get really wide and look brighter even though she can't walk the distance. She still takes in the air, sunshine, and folks along the way for her for the day.
That's so great.
She loves the stroller now. Best investment ever.
Well, let me tell you, I think, Claudia, you saw the picture of Olivia, and I bought her this giant wagon, and the look on her face was like...
She did not like it.
She didn't like her wagon at all. But I love that you've got a dog in a stroller, because I would cheerfully put anyone in a stroller that would go if they were incapacitated for some reason. Yeah, I think that's awesome.
Debbie Marcellus says she wore Paco's collar around her ankle. I had 2 Pacos.
Oh.
Lee Peralt says, our pup who just passed wanted both of us on her walks, lately even refusing to walk if I wasn't there. She went suddenly, but I realized that we both had a beautiful little morning walk with her the day she went. Small, but something that made her happy.
That's so great. You know what's funny that you say that, because I feel like I didn't get to let Isabella eat out of a garbage can. But I'd always said to Isabella, of all my dogs, you could live in New York City. Right? Like, you could have a city life with me. And by chance, the 2 days before she died, I knew something was wrong, so I brought her with me to my friend's birthday. So we went into Silver Lake, a part of LA, and we walked around. We were city chicks together, and then the next day we spent the day at the vet together, but we walked in the city together. So we had our city chick days, which was pretty fun.
Yeah, Capolino says, my dog had one last puppy tear around the house. It was bizarre. He was old and arthritic and couldn't get up a step, but a few weeks before he passed, he went crazy and sprinted around the house
That's
in
awesome.
yard like a lunatic. I laugh out loud before I started getting worried that he was going to give himself a heart attack. I'm sorry, that's so cute.
That's so cute.
Carrie Betts, she says, Munchie, who's my 17-year-old cat, loves to feel the sun on his face and listen to the birds, so I try to take him outside once a day.
Oh.
We just sit together while I hold him. I love my boy.
And Carrie did a remarkable job with her bucket list for her dog, Bubba. Which...
Yeah, she posted about his partying and bucket list and all that.
Okay, good. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if anyone's a pro at bucket list, it's Carrie could come in and you know what, Carrie, there's your business. You could go around and help people implement their bucket list. Because, you know, it's a lot of times people come to my death and dying class thinking that they're like, I don't even know how I'm going to make it through the 3 days. And by the end of the 3 days, they're like, I just want to help animals that are transitioning, right? It's
I'm
because,
one of those.
Yeah, you and Carrie were definitely from that last one.
Yeah. So, wait, oh shoot, it just lost. So Stephen Arnold Ripke says, we have been wondering if Mittens sent us, I'm going to pronounce this, Ein, before we knew she was sick. In so many ways, it just did not make sense at the time how our path and Eins crossed, and that she would join our tribe. And another friend thought the same thing and suggested that perhaps that was the point of it. Mittens called her to us or something like that.
You know, I've talked to your animals, so I would definitely think so, because it's very much like what happened here with Abby. And I know that actually Olivia sent us Abby. I didn't know that Olivia probably knew that Isabella was going with her. But yeah, I would definitely think that, because it would seem like so divinely timed.
So, sorry, I just read this and I want to read it before it disappears on my screen. Yasmin says, which is true, you posted that amazing video on your page about the crippled dogs in the wheelchairs running on the beach.
Oh my God.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
Because I've had 2 dogs that would have needed, but back then they didn't have them, that would have loved the wheelchair.
Yeah.
Well, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe they would have been like Olivia.
Yeah. Yeah.
So...
Yeah. So what time are we?
We have a minute.
We have 1 minute. Okay. So don't forget to do your bucket list and put hashtag bucket list. And you know, even if you've lost someone but you still have someone in your house that isn't necessarily old, like maybe the bucket list is for younger animals that just need to feel joy right now because there's so much grief. Anyway, it's really going to be, I think, profound to see these bucket lists, and we're going to get ideas from each other. I know that. Like for me, you know, Delilah's only 7, but I feel a need to do some traveling with her, right? So I know what my bucket list with these guys is. But it doesn't mean that I won't steal some of your ideas. So I can't wait to see them. And anyway, there are lots of things coming up, and if you can get on in an hour, we're doing the book club, Communication with All Life. And even if you haven't purchased the book yet, you can still join, and we still have several chapters to go in the book, so please join us for this. And you know, you could always quickly get it on, I know that it would take a while for it to order, but you know, you can always get it on Kindle. Right?
Oh, Kindle, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm really grateful that you're here. This has been really amazing. We have lots of stuff to do. We've got a big class tomorrow. We've got a big class on Thursday, a big class on Friday. And, you know, we're really going to collectively move through our grief and create more open hearts. And there are all kinds of ways to work with me. If going further is something you want to do, I've got lots of, I've got the intensive in the fall. I'll be teaching in Houston in September. And I've also got the White Lion trip, and I've got home study courses. So if you are feeling called to do this work or even learn more about it, please email at assist@joanranquet.com, because I'd love to help you. And I'm really just grateful that we're all here moving through our stuff together. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, or in an hour.
Oh, yeah.